Hi everybody, welcome to today's story time. We're reading the third book in the Universal series, A Mirror of Miracles, and we're on chapter 3. Two hearts combine as one heart divides. Ali and Molly's parents joined Hugh and Molly at the front door as Ben appeared. Hi, welcome, Ben said, holding out his hand and shaking Molly's dad's hand. It's a beautiful place you have here, Molly's dad said, admiring the stunning house before him. Ali received an approving nudge off Molly's mum as Ben stepped forwards. Hi, nice to meet you, he said, kissing her on the cheek. So you're the man who brought Ali back to life, Molly's mum said, stepping back and looking him up and down. Ben smiled and blushed as he turned and headed back into the house, followed quickly by Hugh and Molly. Come on, Molly, I'll show you where you're sleeping. You're in the room next to mine, Hugh said, tugging Molly's suitcase across the living room floor. Molly skipped behind and twirled around as she admired the living room and large patio doors framing the incredible view. Hugh pulled the suitcase up the stairs as Molly pushed from underneath, and they slowly climbed. With one final heave, they lifted the suitcase onto the landing, where Hugh continued to pull it into the spare room. This is your room, Molly, Hugh said, with his arms outstretched. Molly ran and jumped on the bed, flopping down. It's perfect, she sang. Quick, follow me, Hugh said, motioning with his hands as they ran into Hugh's room next door. This is my room, he said, standing in the centre of the room. Molly wandered over to the vision wall. What's this? She said, pointing to the pictures. Oh, this is my vision wall of the people I want to meet, the places I want to go, and dreams I want to come true. It really works too. It's the same thing I did when we came on our first trip to America, Hugh said, climbing onto his bed. Molly stepped up to join him to have a closer look at the pictures. That's so cool, she muttered. We can make one in your room if you like, Hugh said eagerly. Okay, Molly said, bouncing off the bed onto the floor. But first, let me show you around, Hugh said, joining her and then running out of the room. They both flew down the stairs, skidded across the living room floor and crashed into the kitchen table, where they found everyone sitting around with a fresh cup of tea. Mum, can we go outside so I can show Molly around the barn and meet Firefly? Hugh asked, dancing up and down on the spot. Just let Molly catch her breath first. Calm down a little, Ali said. Molly took a large dramatic breath in and let out a large sigh. All done, Molly said, eagerly as enthusiastic as Hugh. Go on then, let Molly borrow some of your boots and a jacket though, Ali called as Hugh and Molly darted towards the front door. You can have these ones, Hugh said, thrusting a pair of boots at Molly. Molly slipped on Hugh's boots and quickly followed him out of the front door. It's like they have never been apart, Molly's dad said, pleased. The room started to fill with an awkwardness. Ben looked at Ali uncomfortably. So I thought you three could join us as we're going up to Yellowstone to visit some friends, Ali said, trying to lighten the mood. Molly's mum took a deep breath in and stared into her cup. Well, we'll have to see how things go, she said as she glanced up at Molly's dad. Ben placed his cup on the worktop, sensing more needed to be said. I'm just going to check Hugh isn't running circles around Molly, Ben said, making his way out of the kitchen and disappearing out of the front door. Ali watched him leave as the front door clicked close. Ali looked back at Molly's mum. I'm so sorry to hear about Nana O. It must have been such a shock, Ali said sympathetically. Molly's dad sat back in his chair and readjusted his legs under the table. Well, she did it in style, that's for sure. When we got to the house, she had already got rid of everything apart from a box of stuff for each of us and a note, which is one of the reasons we are on this trip, he continued. That woman knew things about life that the rest of us are still trying to figure out, Ali said. Hang on, what do you mean one of the reasons? Ali said suspiciously. Molly's mum shuffled uncomfortably in her seat. There has been something on the cards and we have been trying to fix it for Molly's sake, but actually, it's just making things worse, she said. Molly's dad started to swill his tea around in his cup. Molly's mum continued. Molly doesn't know yet, but we are... She paused. Well, we're getting a divorce. Ali was speechless and looked at each of them in turn. Talk about dropping a bombshell, Ali said in disbelief. We wanted to come on this trip for Molly and to honour Nana O's wish, Molly's mum said tearfully. Right, I guess, well, to be honest, I don't know what to say, Ali said, shaking her head, trying to come to terms with it. When are you going to tell Molly? She asked. After the trip, we think. Molly's mum said, looking across to Molly's dad, who nodded in agreement. We would be thankful if you didn't say anything to her, Molly's dad joined in. Yes, of course, I'll keep my lips sealed, Ali said, looking out of the kitchen window, watching Ben make his way back towards the front door. Molly's mum reached over and took Ali's hand. We're so glad to see you happy again, Ali. Ali smiled as she watched Ben walk through the door. Miracles do happen, Ali said, looking at Ben. And Hugh seems to be following in Nana O's footstep, Ali said, looking back at Molly's mum and raising her eyebrows. Then we have double trouble, because Molly's like a dog with a fresh scent after Nana O told her the story about the locket. Molly's mum smiled. I used to love that story, Ali said, remembering sitting by the fire. What story is that? Ben asked, sitting down and joining everyone at the table. How did it go? Ali said, looking up at the ceiling as she reminisced. Love is the answer, wishes come true, as you find the place that connects me and you, Ali recalled. Molly's mum and dad smiled with agreement. Huh, Ben said, letting the words sink in. Is this a story about a locket someone found and those words were written on a note inside? Ben asked inquisitively. They all looked at each other in disbelief. Molly's mum was the first to break the silence. Yes, how do you know that? She said, puzzled. My dad used to tell me a story just like that, Ben said, tapping his fingers on the table. What coincidence, Molly's mum said, looking from Ben to Ali and back to Ben again. They were intrigued by a large bang as the front door flew open and a horse's head peered through it. Can Molly and I go for a ride? Hugh asked as his head appeared alongside. Out! No horses in the house, Ali yelled. She watched the horse's head disappear outside, which then was replaced by Molly and Hugh. Ben looked down, trying to hide his laughter. A quick ride down the dirt road and back. It'll be dinner time soon, Ali said grudgingly. Thanks, Mum, Hugh replied, elated. Thank you, Ali, Molly said, as she pulled Hugh back outside by his shirt. Molly's dad looked across at Ali, concerned. Will they be safe? He asked. Ben stood up. Yeah, Firefly will take care of them, he smiled, still chuckling to himself. Ali stood up. Let me show you where you'll be sleeping so you can get settled in, she said as she placed her cup in the sink and walked over to the suitcases that Ben had already started to pick up. Molly's mum and dad rose from the table and began to follow Ali and Ben. I'll light a log fire after dinner, Ben said as he made his way up the stairs. That'll be a good idea, Ali said. She turned to look at her as she gave him a weak smile. Some trip, hey? He said as his gut feelings were confirmed. Something like that, Ali responded, disheartened. Molly's mum and dad made their way up the stairs to join Ali and Ben, who were placing the suitcases in the spare room. We'll leave you to get settled in, Ben said, as he gently guided Ali out of the room. Just don't unpack too much, as we'll be heading to Yellowstone tomorrow, Ali said, leaning against the door frame with Ben standing behind her. Molly's mum sat down on the bed. As she glanced up at Molly's dad, to be honest, we were kind of hoping that Molly could go with you three. It'll give us a chance to sort out all the paperwork and make some decisions, said Molly's mum. You really are serious, Ali said, still shocked. Yes, Molly's dad said, placing his hands on his hips. Sure, we're happy to help as much as possible, Ben said, placing his hand on Ali's shoulder. Ali took a step back and smiled at both of them, saying, Absolutely, anything you need, as she and Ben turned around, making their way down the stairs. As they stepped off the last step, Ben took hold of Ali's hand and led her across to the office. As they walked into the room, he slowly closed the door. Ali walked across and slowly lowered herself into his chair. I can't believe it. Where has this come from? What about Molly? It's going to hit her hard, Ali began rolling off the questions that were rapidly flowing around her head. Ben walked across and perched on the edge of the desk next to Ali. They must have their reasons, and it doesn't seem like it's been a hasty decision. Molly looked like a strong girl. She'll be all right, Ben said encouragingly. Ali swiveled her chair towards him and looked up. You framed them, she said, spotting the 3 pieces of paper that were now hanging above the desk with the photo of them together. Ben looked around and smiled. Of course, he said, pointing to the middle of a piece of paper entitled Our Dreams. That is what I'm creating every day, he said. Ali stood up, wrapped her arms around his neck. Me too. I kind of feel guilty that our life is just beginning whilst Molly's parents is ending, Ali said, staring at the pieces of paper. It's not ending, Ali. It's transforming. Sometimes people have to move on to be able to move forward. You should be able to understand that. Ali nodded in agreement. You're right. At least Molly has Hugh to talk to, Ali said, becoming lost in thought. I think we have two very adventurous kids on our hands. Two seekers, Ben said humbly. Ali looked across to him. What do you mean? She said. Well, the saying, 2 peas in a pod, definitely applies to those two. Are definitely from the same pod, and they want to find answers, the truth, Ben said keenly. Oh boy. I could only just about keep up with Hugh and his questions and adventures, Ali smiled, remembering when she had first brought the plane tickets. Well, Hugh has already started asking the next question, Ben began. We're going to have to make a stop off before we head up to Yellowstone. There is someone Hugh wants to meet, and someone I want you to meet, Ben said, wrapping his arms around Ali's waist. Ali looked out of the office window to the mountain standing so boldly against the countryside. The man at the bottom of the mountain, she whispered. Who is he? And how did he know the story about the locket? Ali asked inquisitively. And you think Hugh had asked a lot of questions, Ben said, standing up to kiss her before exiting the office. Ali continued to look at the mountain. I'm guessing it has something to do with why you talk in riddles, she called back. Ali made her way towards the kitchen as she hummed a tune before crouching down to get out the pans to cook dinner. Ben reappeared and said, I'll just check the kids are okay and finish up for the night, before heading out to the barn. As Ali stood back up, she turned round to respond, but he had already gone. Ali started to chop the vegetables and put the meat in the stew pot. Is there anything I can do to help? Ali looked up to see Molly's mum standing next to the table. He's just taken a nap, Molly's mum pointed upstairs in the direction of where Molly's dad was. Keeping me company would be a great help, Ali smiled. Molly's mum watched as Molly and Hugh rode past the kitchen window on Firefly, with Ben walking alongside carrying a sack of feed. Ali, life sure has turned around for you, Molly's mum said, sitting down at the table. Ali glanced out the window at Hugh and Molly, laughing. It hasn't been easy, that's for sure, Ali replied. Healing never is. It's something that most of us aren't brave enough to even attempt. You're a true inspiration, Ali, Molly's mum said proudly. Ali walked across to the cooker and placed the stew in the oven. To be honest, if it wasn't for Hugh, I don't know if I could have done it. If he hadn't have followed his intuition, we wouldn't be here now. I don't know where he gets his fearlessness from, Ali said proudly. But like Ben said, I can now create each day and not just survive it. It's not like the journey got easier, but the faith in the footsteps I take forward gets stronger, which pulls me through the stormy days, Ali said as she joined Molly's mum at the table. How about you? How are you doing? Ali asked softly. Molly's mum ran her fingers through her hair. Honestly, I don't know at the moment. When I'm not feeling numb, I'm terrified, and when I'm not terrified, I feel like my heart has been frozen and then smashed with a sledgehammer into 1,000 pieces. And when I'm not feeling that, the pain is so intense, Molly's mum said as tears began to well up. Ali reached over and hugged her. All I know is that something deep inside me says it's the right choice. I have no clue of what is going to happen next. I just know that staying there isn't what I should do. Molly's mum said through the tears. Sometimes the right thing to do isn't the easiest. It's usually the hardest. No matter what happens, I'm here for you, and I believe in you, and you're the braver one for following the voice in your heart. I won't worry about Molly. There is no better lesson than to show her it's okay to take your own path and do what's best for you, Ali replied, squeezing Molly's mum tighter. Molly's mum sat back and wiped away the tear. These aren't quite the circumstances in which I wanted us to meet back up, she smiled. Heck, if Nana O was here, she would have a fresh pot brewing, the biscuits out, telling us stories where miracles happen every day, Ali said joyously, wiping away one of Molly's mum's tears. Ali got up from the table and headed over to the cupboard. She stood on her tiptoes as she tried to grab something from the top shelf. Nearly there. Come on, a little bit closer, she muttered. Ah, got it, Ali exclaimed as she lifted down the teapot and placed it on the table. Let's do this Nana O style, she said as she strutted over to get 2 cups and put the kettle on. Molly's mum watched Ali as she made the tea, put some biscuits on a plate and brought them over to the table. "Who is this new Ali?" she chuckled. "I hate to admit it, but Nanaro was right. Love is the answer when wishes do come true. The moment I met Ben, and after a few wobbles, life's transformed beyond recognition because I allowed love back into my life. But not only that, I let it fill every inch of my life. When I look in the mirror, I see someone I only dreamed of becoming. But now, when I look, I realise I'm her," Ali said humbly while she poured the tea. Molly's mum picked up the cup. "I hope I have the same look on the next part of my journey," she said. "I have a feeling we are being helped and guided in ways we don't quite understand," Ali said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Cheers to Nanaro and how wonderful she was, even though her ways were sometimes a little weird," Ali said, raising her cup of tea. The two cups clinked. "Cheers," Molly's mum said with hope. "I don't suppose there's another one going for me," a voice said behind them. Ali and Molly's mum looked up to see Molly's dad standing there. "Sure, take a seat," Ali said, as she fetched another cup of. Molly's dad sat down at the table. "I think we should tell Molly this evening, and then at least she has a chance to ask us thousands of questions," Molly's dad suggested. Molly's mum let out a sigh. "I guess you're right." Ali poured a cup of tea and passed it to Molly's dad. "She'll be all right after she gets over the shock of it. She looks like she has the courage of a hero," Ali said encouragingly. "Miss Independent, more like," Molly's dad smiled as he took a sip of tea. They listened and heard Molly and Hugh talking as they made their way across from the barn to the house. "But how can that be? And why 3 times?" Molly asked Hugh enthusiastically. "I don't know. It just always seems to work," Hugh said, shrugging his shoulders. They walked through the front door, kicked off their boots and headed out over to the sink to wash their hands. "How long until dinner, Mum?" Hugh asked, while splashing Molly with water. "Hey!" Molly screamed in disgust. "As soon as I lay the table," Ali said, getting up and moving the teapot and plate of biscuits to the worktop. Ben stepped through the front door and headed straight to the cupboard. He brought the plates across and began setting the table as Ali lifted the stew out of the oven and placed it in the centre of the table. "I'm so hungry," Molly said, sitting down and starting to put the stew on her plate. "Hey, leave some for us," Hugh said with fear as he watched Molly continue to place spoonful after spoonful of stew on her plate. "I'm a growing girl," Molly said jokingly. As they all sat around the table, Molly's dad looked across at Molly's mum with a suggestive look. Molly's mum quickly shook her head. "So, how was Firefly, Molly?" she asked. "Oh my goodness, Mum, she is amazing. I'm going to get a horse when I get back." "Now, hold on a minute. Where are you guys going to keep it?" Molly's dad asked, worried. "In the garden," Molly said casually. "Molly, horses need a place they can walk around and plenty of grass," Ben said, trying to ease the situation. "Fine, I'll ask a farmer to use his field," Molly said firmly. Ben looked up from the dinner at Molly. He couldn't disagree with that idea, he thought, as he took another mouthful of stew. As Ben continued to stare at Molly, there was something he recognised about her. Her fieriness seemed familiar. "She reminds me of someone, but I just can't put my finger on it," Ben thought to himself. "What time are we heading up to Yellowstone tomorrow, Mum?" Hugh asked, as he sorted out the carrots from the stew and moved them to the edge of his plate. "After you've eaten your carrots," Ali said, watching him. "Oh, Mum, that's not fair," Hugh pleaded. "Well, I think Firefly would be very jealous of you right now getting all those carrots," Ben stepped in. Hugh looked at him astonished and then started to chew on a carrot while pulling a face of disgust. "We'll set off tomorrow morning. There is somewhere we need to stop on the way," Ben said, trying to hide his smile. Hugh shot him a look across, but remained motionless. "Your mum's right, though. We can't go unless your dinner is all eaten up," Ben continued. Hugh began to frantically shovel the remaining pieces of food into his mouth, including the carrots. With his mouth overflowing, "Finished," he spluttered. Ben looked across at Ali, shrugging his shoulders. "I tried," he said, placing his fork down on his empty plate. Ali got up and collected everyone's plate, placing them by the side of the sink. "We all have," she said mockingly, ruffling Hugh's hair as she walked past. "Right, Hugh and Ben, you're both with me. We've got to do final checks." Ali said, pulling on her boots. But Mum, what about... Hugh asked, but before he could finish, Ali looked at him sternly, which was her way of saying that he shouldn't say the last word. Okay, he said, hanging his head as he got off his chair and shuffled across to where Ali was waiting. Ben got up and joined them as Mum watched the three of them step outside into the darkness. Mum, why can't I go? Molly asked as she watched them through the kitchen window. Molly's dad reached across and took Molly's hand. Your mum and I need to speak to you about something. Molly turned and looked at them. What? About you two splitting up? Molly said, resting her head on the back of the chair and continuing to stare out the window. Molly's mum and dad stared at each other in disbelief. You two have been acting weird for months, and Mum, you are so angry all the time. When I was last with Nana O, it was like she knew something was wrong, and that's when she explained it all to me. Molly said, turning round and facing her parents. Oh, of course she did, Molly's mum said, rubbing her forehead in relief. What did she say? Molly's dad asked, curious to know. Molly looked down at the table. That sometimes in life, paths cross and combine, and just like a railway track, two paths travel side by side and make a whole one. But sometimes the railway splits up and one set of tracks goes one way and the other set of tracks go the other way. It's not my fault that they have gone in different directions, Molly said, looking at both of her parents. She also said that it is better to have two happy parents that are living their own lives, with me being part of both of them, than one unhappy family, Molly finished. We still love you. This is between me and your dad. We have just asked life a new question. We are no longer asking the same question like we once did, Molly's mum added. I get that, but I have my own questions to ask too. I know everything is going to be okay, as my intuition says so, Molly said, looking at her mum as she lifted out the locket from under her jumper and began playing with it. When did you get so wise? Molly's mum said, stroking Molly's hair. Molly shrugged her shoulders. Is that it? Can I go to the barn now? Molly asked, getting up from the table. There is one more thing, Molly's dad began. Would you mind if your mum and I stayed here whilst you visited Yellowstone tomorrow, just to sort a few things out? Molly's dad asked tentatively. Sure, Molly said dismissively, and walked across and pulled on her boots and jacket before heading outside to the barn. Molly's mum let out a large sigh. Of course Nana O knew. That's why she wanted us to go on this trip. It wouldn't surprise me if she didn't already know we would come here and Molly would see Hugh again. Molly's mum said, waving her hands to the sky in frustration. Even when she's dead, she's still one step ahead of us, she exclaimed. Molly's dad began to laugh at the thought of Nana O sorting everything out from up in the stars. Well, all that matters is that Molly understands. She probably understands better than we do, he said, pointing at himself and then at Molly's mum. Shaking her head in disbelief, Molly's mum stood up and said, I'm going to go and have a shower. She got up and made her way to the stairs. As she reached the top and walked along the landing, she heard the front door open, followed by a patter of feet. Molly and Hugh kicked off their boots as they flew in different directions. Ben followed them, balancing a pile of logs in his arms. As he walked across to the fireplace where he began to build a fire, Ali came in and closed the door behind her. As she took off her boots, Molly's dad walked across to join Ben. As he watched him build a fire with gladness, Ben struck a match and placed it in the fire, watching it burst into light. I do love that bit, Ben said, standing back up and looking at Molly's dad. Molly's dad sat down on the couch and watched the flames flicker. It sure is a nice spot you have here, he said, looking at Ben. I have been very lucky. I am glad to call this home, Ben said, looking up at the ceiling, then walking across to the chair next to the couch and sitting down. Ali walked in with empty glasses and a bottle of wine and placed them on the coffee table in the centre. Hugh took hold of Molly's hand. Follow me, he whispered as he led Molly across the room to the back porch, where they slid out the door and quietly closed it behind them. Hugh walked to the bench and sat down. He stared up at the mountain. Molly walked across to join him. As she followed Hugh's gaze, she took out the locket that was hanging around her neck and began to play with it between her fingers. Hugh saw a glimmer out of the corner of his eyes as she turned to look at Molly. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to the locket. Molly looked down. "It was a gift from Nana-O," she said distantly. She unclipped it from around her neck and opened it, taking out a small piece of paper from inside. Hugh leaned across and read the words out loud. "Love is the answer, wishes come true, as you find the place that connects me and you," he said, looking back up at Molly. "What does that mean?" Hugh said, confused. "That everything and everyone is connected, and we can achieve anything if we follow our intuition. It relates to that passing thought or funny feeling in your stomach when something is going to happen, that asks you to act when you meet certain people or go to certain places to reach your dreams," Molly said wisely. "I wear it to remind me to follow my gut feelings. When I have asked life a question, it kind of sounds like it complements your vision wall. You'll focus on what you want and it tells you who you need to speak to in order to get there," Molly said, placing the locket back under her top. Hugh looked back at the mountain as he considered Molly's words. "Why do you keep looking at that mountain?" Molly asked, interrupting Hugh's thoughts. Hugh took a deep breath in. "I'm getting that funny feeling," he said, pointing to his stomach. "That at the bottom of that mountain is where the next piece of the puzzle is. The next answer to our question," Hugh said, turning and looking into Molly's eyes. Molly and Hugh sat quietly as they thought about the adventure they were going to embark on. The door began to open as Molly's mum's head popped out. "Come on, you two, it's time for bed. You have had a busy day today and you'll need to be well rested for tomorrow," she said, gesturing for them to come inside. Molly and Hugh stood up and followed Molly's mum inside. Hugh walked across to Ali, kissed her good night and headed towards Ben. "Good night, champion," he said, kissing him good night. "You promise we will go to see him tomorrow?" Hugh asked anxiously. "Promise," Ben said, smiling. Molly waved good night to everyone as she followed Hugh up the stairs and made her way to bed. I'll see you tomorrow for Chapter 4, Mirror of Miracles.